So earlier this year, I passed 6,000 subscribers on this channel, which is amazing. Thank you very much for subscribing if you do. And if you don't already, hello, please do subscribe. And I said I would do a Q&A. And then about 2 months after that, I posted the invitation for questions for the Q&A. And another several months later, I am getting around finally to actually recording this video. So I've collected all of the questions that I can find in the various places that I've posted asking for questions about the channel, about Doctor Who, about Red Dwarf, about Star Trek, and one very bizarre question that makes me wonder if the questioner should maybe seek help. Hi, I'm Phil and I run this YouTube channel Culture Filter where I talk about geeky pop culture, but let's be honest, 90% of it is about Doctor Who. I do talk about other stuff as well though, just not as often as Doctor Who. And a load of you asked me questions, so now is the time to answer them. So let's crack on, shall we? My first question I'm going to answer today is from Starfleet Boy. Hello Starfleet Boy. What's the most obscure or strange piece of memorabilia you have or would want? Now, I don't really have much in the way of like unique memorabilia. If I buy anything, it tends to be Doctor Who novels or Big Finish or DVDs and Blu-rays. I tend to stick to the sort of story-based things. So I don't have anything you would necessarily call memorabilia, or much in the way of memorabilia, for things I've been to and things, you know. What do I have? I mean, I have... When I was thinking about this question, I was trying to think of maybe some of the more unique things I have. I got that Doctor Who advent calendar a few years ago, which again isn't unique to me, loads of people got it, but there were some bizarre things in there, like this Dalek mutant, I don't know if you can see that Dalek mutant bookmark, I think it is. That's a bit weird. I've still got that. And there's like these coasters, again came in the advent calendar, like episode coasters. I've never used them. Quite cool designs though. So I've got things like that. I've got the uniquest thing I've got, because nobody else will have this, is something my wife made me, which is this, a little blackboard with a TARDIS on, with a space to put in how many days until new Doctor Who, which as you can see at the moment, I have not filled in. But that's kind of unique, but I don't know if you'd call that memorabilia. The one unique thing that I do have that I would call memorabilia is probably this. This is a little badge that I got when I went to, so bit of background, my day job is in radio. I work for BBC Radio 4, and they had, back in 2014, I was fairly new to working there at the time, and they had a BBC staff Doctor Who Day event where we could go, and I can't remember if there was a new episode screening or something, but there was talks, it was like a little mini convention in Broadcasting House, but just for BBC staff. I can't really remember what else happened there, other than there were some talks and some props, maybe some people dressed up as Cybermen, and we got this badge. So that's fairly unique memorabilia, I think. It says Doctor Who 2014 just for staff. Cool. Next question is from Josh Carr, the fantastic host of the Who Knew podcast. He asks, you've been tasked with creating a Doctor Who starter pack for someone who's never seen the show and knows nothing of it. You can pick 5 stories, but season openers, post regen stories, and any other lore-heavy stories are banned. Just glorious filler. What 5 do you pick? Ooh, that is a tough one. So, first one I'm going to go with. Now, here's an either or, because would the Daleks, the original first Dalek story, does that count as a lore-heavy story? Because it's the introduction of the Daleks. If it doesn't, I'm choosing that one. If Josh, let me know in the comments below. If it doesn't count because it's too lore heavy in your view, then I'll pick the Aztecs instead, because I feel we need some First Doctor representation on this list. And I really love the Aztecs, and I love Ian and Barbara as well. So I'm picking those. Next, I'm picking the Green Death, because that was one of my very earliest memories of watching Doctor Who, is the Green Death, so I want to give that experience to someone as well. Then, I would have picked the TV movie, but it falls into that no post-regeneration episodes thing. I love the TV movie. It's very special to me personally because of the age I was when I watched it, but can't pick that one, so I'm going to go with Father's Day, Blink, and Oxygen for the other three. Jack Alexander, one of the hosts of the Awful Lot of Running podcasts, asks, if you had to choose a human villain, no Candyman cop-outs, to eat from all Doctor Who is it, and how would you prepare that meal? Jack, you need to talk to somebody, mate. You need to seek help. Jack's lovely, really. He's lovely. I'm sure he's not a cannibal in real life. I'm fairly certain of that. We're good friends, and I'm pretty sure he's not a cannibal. I'm not answering that question. I don't want to eat anybody, Jack. Don't make me eat people. So, two very similar questions here. One from @HereComesTheDoctor. If you were to write an episode for Doctor Who in the current era, what would it be? And the other one from @TimRob12. If the Doctor Who production office were to call you up and go like, hey, you want to pitch us a story? What would that story be? Now, I've always thought that it would be fantastic to have a Silurian/Sea Devil story set during the time of the Silurian domination of the planet, before humans evolved from monkeys, possibly when the dinosaurs still roamed the Earth, but when, Silurian civilization was at its peak on Earth. I would like to see a story absolutely set then with the Doctor encountering them in their natural habitat on Earth when they were the rulers. What the story within that would be, I don't know. Haven't thought that far about it, but I really want to see that story. So I would come up with something with that premise to pitch to them. That's what I would do. And look, if anybody else wants to take that idea and run with it, absolutely go for it, because I want to see that. Rob the Rubbish Time Lord asks, do you think they will leave the rest of the Doctor Who 60 seasons until the end of the collection range? I hope not, because I kind of think I like them nicely spread out so that, we're not just going to end up with all the black and white ones at the end. That feels a bit, I like them kind of nicely spread out, but then, on the other hand, that gives us more time to wait for other stuff. You may be missing episodes might turn up, or gives them more time to do animations of some of the stories. So I'm a bit in two minds about it, but I would hope that they could spread it out a bit while also having time to animate all the ones that are missing. Treklad has 3 questions. Greedy so-and-so. Number 1, you have to recast your all-time favourite Doctor. Who do you recast and who do you replace them with? Oh, that's tough, because they're my favourite. So, okay, I've kind of got 2 favourites. First is the 8th Doctor, who is kind of my Doctor because of the age I was when the TV movie was on. I was 10 when that aired, so I kind of latched on to Paul McGann, and most of my Big Finish physical CDs are Paul McGann. I read I'm still working my way through them, but I really like the 8th Doctor Adventure novels, so he's kind of my Doctor. But also, I would put in joint first place in terms of favourite Doctor, the 12th Doctor. So if I had to recast both of those, recasting 8, I'm trying to think of who might have been around in 1996, 95, 96, when they were filming, when it came out. And I'd be tempted to go with Timothy Dalton, because he has he was Bond, he has the suaveness that kind of Paul McGann kind of has, and I think he would be interesting. I'd like to see him put in that kind of story where, he has the kiss and stuff. I think he could do that well, but he'd also bring something slightly different to it as well, so that would be interesting to see. For recasting 12, I thought you've got the storylines of am I a good man, and you kind of want that doubt in there at the beginning, which is why Peter Capaldi was such a brilliant choice, because he'd played these darker roles before, these angry, not very likable roles, and therefore you kind of believe that, oh, maybe this person isn't a good person, and that whole journey we went on where he was doubting himself, we went along it with him. So you need somebody that can still do that. So I think Jason Isaacs would be good for that, because he's got this, he plays villains. He does. In Harry Potter, he played a villain. In Star Trek, he played a villain, but a villain who was pretending to be good to start with. And so from that, I think we saw that, he had the kind of like the 2 shades there, and you could see the darkness was there, but it was kind of under the surface for a long time. mixed in with him trying to be a good, or seemingly trying to be a good person. So I think he has that. He would have been an interesting 12th Doctor with the same storylines, I think. Treklad also asks, rank these episodes from worst to best: Sub Rosa, Spock's Brain, Code of Honor, and These Are the Voyages, for generally regarded as quite bad episodes of Star Trek across various different Star Trek iterations. I mean, Code of Honor has to be at the bottom. I mean, it's just a horribly racist depiction of a society, and just, it's badly scripted, and it's so painful to watch. It is so bad to watch. So I'm putting that at the bottom. Spock's Brain as the next worst one, I think, possibly. That was a really bad episode of the original series. Then I would put Sub Rosa, and then the best of a bad bunch, These Are the Voyages, which is mostly bad because of its kind of disrespect for the show of it as a whole, in that it basically made the last episode of Star Trek Enterprise a Star Trek The Next Generation episode by focusing it on guest character Riker and it all being framed from his point of view. So it was a bit of a kind of a, it wasn't a fitting ending for the characters. I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, there are some interesting things within the episode, but the framing device they used was, maybe not the best choice to go out on for a show, but there we go. And finally, he asks, how do you successfully balance running a YouTube channel with raising a family? Just kind of fit it in when you can, I guess. I don't stick to a regular upload schedule. I try occasionally, but sometimes there'll be months between videos because I've been really busy. And, you just try and find those little spots where you can fit in doing something. I'm lucky enough that I work from home a few days a week, and therefore my lunch hour, I can just come here, up here, and I can film a video in my lunch hour because it's just upstairs from where I'm working downstairs. So, clock off for lunch, come up here, record a video, fine. And then I can, on the days when I'm going into the office in London, I can edit on the train, take my laptop with me and edit on the train. So you find those little times, where you've got these spare hours here and there, and just kind of fit it into that. But I've got ADHD. I'm very bad at getting around to things and finishing things. So I will be trying to edit on the train, but I'll be very easily distracted by various social media on my mobile phone, for instance. And I could probably do twice as much editing in that time if I could concentrate on it and actually focus on it. But my focus ain't good. It's okay. You do it. You kind of find those little spots to get stuff done. At Polgara UK 5606 asks, from Classic Who and New who would you say is your favourite Doctor and companion? They don't have to be in the TARDIS at the same time. Multiples are allowed, mainly because I can never decide on just one, so why should you? Yeah, well, I mean, I've got the easy divide here. My two favourites are 8, who classes as Classic, and 12, who classes as New Who. So there you go. That's my Classic and New Who favourite Doctors. Companions, a bit more difficult. I would say for Classic, I have a real fondness for Ian and Barbara. I'm not going to separate them. I'm not going to pick one over the other. I'm just going to have them as a couple. Ian and Barbara. And then I think for Modern Who, I quite like Clara. From series 8 and 9, particularly, is probably my favourite companion. Joey Underwood asks, how did you get into Doctor Who? Was it during the revival or beforehand? And do you have a particular memory of the first episode you watched? It was a long time before the revival. I am a child of the wilderness years, and I don't remember my first episode specifically. I have various memories of early watching Doctor Who that I couldn't tell you which one came first. So I have a memory of watching the Green Death. It's particularly the maggots. I remember the maggots. I remember being very scared of the maggots as a young child. And that must have been around the early 90s. Probably one of the BBC Two repeats, I would imagine. Also, I remember watching the classic, the Peter Cushing movies as well, of the Dalek movies, when they were on TV at some point. That could have been before the maggots, it could have been after, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think one of those two is probably my first encounter with watching Doctor Who. Might have even been another Pertwee story, I don't know, but I have the memory of the maggots. And then I do remember, and I will have already watched some Doctor Who by this point, I remember watching Dimensions in Time, the Children in Need 30th anniversary special, live on telly with my 3D glasses, and as an 8-year-old I'm being very excited. I do have a bit of a cold, and you might be able to tell my voice is going, so sorry about that. But I will crack on. TARDIS Talks asked, do you think we should work on a Doctor Who video collab? Sure, TARDIS Talks, send me your idea. Come up with an idea, and then we can do a collab. Great channel, by the way, go check him out, TARDIS Talks. At 59RL McCormack asks, what is your opinion on fourth wall breaking? Does it ruin the immersion of a story for you? I don't know if you're talking about just in Doctor Who or just more generally. I don't mind it generally in the right situations. It works really well in Deadpool, for instance, and things like Deadpool and She-Hulk. Things where, in comedy, I think it works a lot better than in drama. Can work in drama as well, though, in certain situations. I struggle to think of one off the top of my head, but I know I've seen drama where fourth wall breaking works. Certainly works in theatre. Theatre, it works a lot. I'm a big fan of Bertolt Brecht's plays. There's a lot of fourth wall breaks in that. In terms of Doctor Who, I don't think it works unless the story has an angle that makes it work. It needs to work within the context of the story and not just come out of nowhere. So I wasn't massively pleased. The wink to camera that Nishiti did, I'd say that doesn't work, but also it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, that doesn't keep me up at night, but I wouldn't have put it in there myself. And the first Doctor saying Merry Christmas to all of you at home, wouldn't have put that in there either. But the 12th Doctor, when he does his talking to the camera, he's kind of technically in his mind palace, but he is addressing us, but he's really addressing himself. So it kind of works narratively there. He's breaking the fourth wall, but there's a kind of plot reason for it, and it kind of works. So in those instances, it's okay. Flatcap Hoovian 1865 asks, where do you see Doctor Who as a TV show being in the next 5 to 10 years? I have no idea. I mean, I can't imagine it going anywhere. It's quite a big central... it's one of the biggest earners the BBC has in terms of intellectual property. So they're going to want to keep it churning over in some form for, as long as they can, because, it earns them money. So I don't know what form it will be in, who knows, and whether Disney will still be involved, who knows, but I'm pretty sure in 5 years' time there will still be more Doctor Who being made. Doctor Who Magical Entertainment 100 asks 4 questions. 1, when are you doing more of the Red Dwarf podcast? A continued question that I get asked. So, and I've said this before, we have episodes recorded. We have about 15 episodes recorded. What I'm struggling with is finding the time to edit them. And it's been almost 2 years since I last released a proper episode. So, yes, I absolutely intend to get back to it. When that will be, I don't want to make any promises, because I've made promises before. I've said at the beginning of the year, oh yeah, this year we'll do it, but then it doesn't happen, and I feel bad. So ultimately, at some point this year, no, not at some point this year, so ultimately at some point, but I'm not going to put a date on it. The second question, which Doctor should star in a Doctor Who Red Dwarf crossover special? Whoever the current Doctor is, frankly. And then thoughts on Emma Watson as the Doctor. I mean, I don't mind Emma Watson. I've only ever really seen her in 2 roles, the role she's most famous for, and then Beauty and the Beast. And she was good in both roles, but there was nothing about her that made me go, oh, she should be the Doctor. That doesn't mean that she doesn't have it in her, and I would absolutely give her a chance if she was cast, but she's not somebody who would be on a list of people that I would think... if you ask me, who should be the next Doctor, she wouldn't be on that list automatically from anything I've seen of her so far. But if she ever gets cast, I will of course give her a chance. And then thoughts on James Bolan as the Master. Now, I think he's probably too old. I mean, he's 90 or approaching 90 at least. I don't think that's for a mainstay Master. I think that's probably too old, isn't it? I mean, back in the day, maybe. Possibly. He could have done it. He's not a name that I would have jumped to the front of my mind, but I would have given him a chance. But now I would say probably too old. Cyber Natasha asks, a quick sneak to get a little Red Dwarf love. What's your top 3 episodes of Red Dwarf from series 1 to the Promised Land. If you've seen our from the Everybody's Dead Dave podcast, which is the Red Dwarf podcast, which we haven't done an episode for in so long, we did do a ranking from series 1 to 8, and off the top of my head, I can't think of any episodes that from the latter seasons, the Dave era, that trump it. I might be wrong about that. I might revise that at a later date. But for now, I'm just going with the list that I had from series 1 to 8, which is Top Place Quarantine, then Gunman of the Apocalypse, and then Dimension Jump. Is there any popular show or movie franchise in the geekdom that you go against the grain and say, I really don't like that? And then they say, for me, it's Babylon 5. Now, I like Babylon 5. I really got into it. But I can see from that first season, one thing I did think while watching the first season is that the acting is a little bit cheesy and ropey and melodramatic, and didn't feel authentic. So I can see possibly where they're coming from, but we got some better acting from season 2 onwards, and then the plot arc was really interesting, and I really got into Babylon 5. There isn't really anything that I can think of that's well regarded that I really didn't like. There's not much that I would go, oh god, I really hated that. Because, I don't know, I'm fairly easygoing. I am someone who, I might watch something and go, no, I'm not particularly, wanting to watch loads more of this. But I very rarely watch something and go, oh my god, this is absolutely terrible, why does everybody love this? So, even things I don't like, I'm very blasé about not liking it. I'm very much like, oh, yeah, it's not for me. But even then, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that everybody else seemed to love, but I wasn't that fussed of. Apart from one thing, and it's not even sci-fi, kind of fantasy, I guess, and that's The Princess Bride. Is it called The Princess Bride? Yeah, that movie with all the memes from,
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And stuff. I watched it, and I was a little bit bored, I gotta be honest. Loads of my friends seem to love it. So, yeah. Chris B says we covered toast last time. Did we? Cool. Now I'd like to know what your favourite biscuit is. Also, please, Phil, stop saying, I'm the fill-in filter. Just say I'm Phil. It's less cringe. Hey. I like my cheesy, cringy intros. Hi, I'm Phil. Hi, what is it I say? Hi, welcome to Culture Filter. I'm the fill-in filter. Yeah, it's a cheesy intro. I don't even use it every video. I just use it sometimes. I can't even remember if I used it at the top of this video or not. But I'm not going to completely get rid of it, but I don't use it every video, so you don't have to listen to it every time if you find it cringe. To answer your question though, Chris, there's a few contenders. Oreos, I love an Oreo. I love a Biscoff biscuit. And there's the classics. I do like a Hobnob, I do like a custard cream. They're all in the top tier of biscuit. Maybe I should do a biscuit tier ranking. Doesn't really fit with the theme of the channel, but I just fancy doing one. But the one biscuit which I would put above all others is probably Fox's Cream Crunch. Absolutely delicious. Darren Lodge asks, do you think that Doctor Who's reputation as a programme has been seriously tarnished by RTD, or do you think that the right sort of person's hands, it can be rescued from oblivion? So, I don't think it is in oblivion. I think that's extremely hyperbolic. Now, it's not at its peak either. It's a show that's been continually on the air now for 14 years, so almost 15 years. So it's not at its peak, but it's not as black and white as, something doesn't have to be the best it's ever been or or it's absolute trash. There's not only two extremes. There's a lot in the middle there, and there's a lot of just it's okay. And I think that's where it is at the moment. It's okay. There is good, there is bad. Now, don't get me wrong. I had issues with the last season, particularly the ending of the last season and the story arc of the last season. But I also thought there were some really strong episodes in there in the middle, and some of those were written by Russell. So I think it's a very mixed bag. The problem is when you've got a slightly weak beginning and an ending which is also, in my opinion, weak and very inaccessible for new viewers in a season where you're trying to get new viewers in, it's the beginning and the ends that lead the impression. So that's my main concern. My main concern with RTD is that he hasn't taken the approach that he maybe took in 2005, which was like, yes, we need to relaunch this show, which I love, but I also need to relaunch it in a very accessible way to new viewers to bring them on board, and then I can start introducing the more lore-heavy stuff later. Instead, he seems to have just gone and created a quite inaccessible series for new viewers, I think, with the way that it was introduced at the beginning and the way they rushed past various things, and then the ending would bring you back a 70s villain in a way which could be done in a way that is accessible, but I don't necessarily think it was here. I don't know if that answers your question. I think, as with anything, I think what the show needs is a bit of a revitalization point to bring new viewers on in a very accessible way, and that can happen at any time with anybody. So I think absolutely somebody can bring it back. Again, with a more fresh approach, maybe, with a maybe slightly different format. I think that the Flux format was actually quite a good one for today's television age. And the only problem with that was that it came at the end of a Doctor's era. But if a new Doctor started their era, especially with a link up with streaming in this kind of more serialized way, I think that could maybe work a lot better. Alpha008 asks, why is a mouse when it spins? Because I said so. And then a question which I'm not sure actually if it comes from my wife or my daughter, but it's from my wife's account. My question is, why does Paige not want to appear on screen anymore? Paige is my daughter. She used to come on reviews with me all the time, but the last season she dropped out and didn't, after the Christmas special, didn't want to do reviews and be on screen anymore. And then there was a few videos where she wanted to be off screen, but her voice heard. She's starting to come back into them, so you may see her some more. But she just, I don't know, she's went through one of those phases where she didn't want to be seen on camera. And that's perfectly fine. I definitely never force my children into videos. They're only in them if they want to be in them. Sometimes they ask to be in them. Sometimes they don't want to be in them. I'm at their whim when it comes to that. And finally, the Lone Time Lord official asks, have you ever considered making a fan project or your own concept version of the show? Now, yes, kind of. Not of Doctor Who specifically, but I do have an idea in my head for an audio drama of a Torchwood spin-off that has been brewing in my head for years, but finding the time to first of all write it, let alone record it, is the difficult part. But it's in there. Maybe one day I will get around to doing that as a fan production, fan audio drama production. I love audio drama. I've worked in audio drama before. So it's certainly an area that I'm interested in, probably more than fan film. So if I ever do anything, it's probably going to be that. And that's it. Thank you for all your questions. And thank you for subscribing if you have, and helping me reach 6,000 subscribers in counting. I think I'm up to about just under 6.5 now. So thank you very much. And onwards to the next several thousand, onwards to 10,000. Let's see if I can get there. Thank you very much. Don't forget to check out another one of my videos like this one on screen now. Go on, click it. You know you want to.